Okay, so today we learned about the plasma membrane. And this week we're going to annotate the plasma membrane of our cells. I chose EPLPP. It's a gut cell. And just like you, I annotated my nucleus. I can see here the plasma membrane. Like this is clearly the plasma membrane of my cell. It gets a little bit dubious here. But I can see, oops, accidentally quick select, undo, here's your friend. Let's stay here on the move tool so we don't do that again. I can see here plasma membrane, and then it seems that the cell goes up like here, and then squiggle, 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 up until plasma membrane over here. To really get a good feeling of the boundaries of your cell, you have to go up and down, and sort of dive into the cell. Here I'm at the very bottom of my cell. Now it's going to disappear. And now there's a gap between its neighboring cells. But then I go up in the other direction, I enter my cell again. Here's my nucleus. And then I keep on going up until the other end of the cell. Now I'm doing this quickly because I've done this several times, but you as well, at the beginning, may take some time to see where your cell begins and ends. It's going to be easier for some of you than others, but it's just a matter of using logic by saying, okay, oh, here's another nucleus. This is definitely another cell, unless they haven't fully separated yet after a cell division. But that's the case only in two of the students in the class, and we've talked about that. Otherwise, all of the others have individual cells. So now I've entered into another cell over here, so I can therefore conclude that this is a plasma membrane separating my cell from the neighboring cell. And then I can go down a little bit and see my cell expands, its area expands. I can dive a little bit deeper and see that it ends over here, that I can go up the other direction and see that it ends over here. And here's a neighboring cell, here's the nucleus, very clear. So spend 5 minutes or so just going up and down. In my case, my cell is pretty much contained. Some of you have cells that spread. The same cell has like this, has a spread, so you have to chase it along your screen by recentering your screen and chasing it, especially the hypodermal cells when they have this property, or the seam cells, I think. Maybe even the neuron cells. But the gut cells, they're like blocks. And so it's easy to see the boundaries, more or less, of my cell. Before I get to the annotation, I want to mention something. I noticed when I was annotating my nucleus, this feature. It seems like there's an indentation in my nucleus, and then there's this white, I don't know if it's a biocondensate or a membrane-bound, membrane compartment. I don't know, but there's something here, and it's right next to the nucleus. And I don't know at this point if this is something that the nucleus is releasing or something that the nucleus is incorporating. There's an indentation, and I don't know if this is because this is going in or coming out. I'm not sure yet, but this is an anomaly. Look how round everything else is, but here there's this issue. I'll even go a little bit deeper, and I'm going to erase part of the nucleus to make it clear. Look how the nuclear membrane seems to be indented here. Let me fill that in again. There you go. That's not what I intended. Let me undo that. And then when I trace, let me close that trace so that it highlights everything in between. You can be careless at this stage because it's already highlighted. So here's my nuclear membrane, and you can see this indentation. If anyone sees something like this in their cells, let me know, because I think this is weird. And then if I go up and down, I think I should also correct this one. Let's see. Let me use the trace eraser. If you are working with quick select, your eraser is going to be a brush. If you're using the trace, your eraser is going to be like a pen. So now let's fill in this part of the nucleus, just so that we leave it clean. This is a spot I care about because there's a detail here. And then let's go back here. I'm bringing this up because as you start to get used to your cell, don't shy away from acknowledging, oh wow, this is cool. That, oh wow, this is cool. That's the beginning of a question, of a hypothesis, of perhaps a discovery. So when you see something strange, according to your standards, ask other people in your rosette, hey, do you see this in your cell? And if nobody sees it in their cell, you may be onto something. Ask other classmates that are also doing your cell type. For example, I'm doing guts. Everyone annotating gut cells. Do you see something like this in your cell? Ask around. If nobody else sees it, that's pretty cool. Then you can start to ask, what is this? And why is it happening in my cell? So keep an eye out for these things. Long introduction just to show you what I've already done and to highlight the importance of keeping an eye out for things that raise your eyebrows. But today we want to annotate the plasma membrane. And the first thing we do is get a sense of the boundaries of our cell. Do not rush into annotating the plasma membrane until you get an intuition of where my cell starts and ends. Okay? And then do yourself a favor. Go to one of the smaller ends of the cell. Let's say, I'm pretty sure that my cell ends eventually around here. This is my cell. And then if I go a little bit higher, I am 90% confident that this is plasma membrane of my cell. Then because there's a gap here between this cell and that cell, I'm going to say this is also the boundary of my cell. And then it gets a little bit ambiguous over here, but because of the texture, I'm going to say this is the neighboring cell and this is my cell. And then I'm not 100% sure if this is plasma membrane or not. That's okay. I'm going to go a little bit here. I think this is the beginning of my cell, the very top, and then I'm going to go all the way bottom. So I'm going to start annotating the plasma membrane over here because it's much smaller. The thing is, quick select is going to make a lot of errors if you try to use it to annotate the plasma membrane. For two reasons. If you want to do the plasma membrane of this cell and just do quick select here, it's going to make a lot of mistakes. The other thing is that we're not actually going to annotate a line, we're going to annotate the entire cell by defining the boundaries, which are the plasma membrane. Let me take a few steps forward and then that will become clear. The first thing you need to do before annotating the plasma membrane is create a new segment. Because anything you do in terms of tracing or quick select will still be considered part of the nucleus, and we're done with the nucleus. So the first thing is to click on quick select or trace tool. Let's do trace tool because that's what we'll be using. And then click create a new segment ID. Now, when I select something, it's no longer going to be part of the nucleus, but it's going to be part of a new segment. So make sure you click New Segment ID before you start annotating your plasma membrane. And then I'm going to use the trace tool, and I'm going to just trace around what I think is my cell. Now, it's very small here because I went to the very end of my cell. And then it's going to expand as I go down, and then it's going to become small again, in most cases. Some of you have cells that sort of twist and turn. You're going to have to chase it. But start from a spot that is as small as possible and that you're confident, 95% confident, it's the beginning of your cell. And then trace it. And then here you see a new segment appeared. Many of you will have segment 2. I have segment 9 because I had other things going on in the background. You don't have to worry about. And then I'm going to change the name of this and say plasma membrane. And now I'm annotating plasma membrane. To keep things organized, I'm going to move this under my cell. So while this is highlighted, like it is now because I clicked on it, I'm going to right-click or use Control-click on the folder and say Move Active Segment here. And now everything is organized under my cell. So my nucleus and my plasma membrane. Now you're ready to start annotating the plasma membrane. Now, you're not going to do the entire cell because that's a lot of work to manually trace the boundary of your cell without using the quick select tool. So let's do portions of your cell this week. And then as we move forward, every week you can do a couple other portions, especially for the regions that you're not sure about. This week, you should do about 10 tracings and use interpolate in between them. And if it gets it right, keep it. If not, undo it. So let me give you an example. I did this one. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper in my cell. I get a little bit deeper, and I'm going to say I'm 90% confident this is the boundary of my cell. And then some squiggliness happens here. I'm not going to stress about it. But I'm quite confident this is my cell. Why? First of all, because earlier it was just a small portion over here. When you click on it, it's going to be centered again. So I'm going to center it like this. I'm going to go just a few slices deep. Make sure you're going in the right direction. If you're doubtful about the direction, find your nucleus. Here's my nucleus up here. So this is the right direction. Let me go up, up, up until I find. Here's my cell. I'm going to annotate this one as well. This is slice number 2. I think this is the plasma membrane of my cell. Plasma membrane is still activated. Don't be annotating nucleus anymore. It's plasma membrane we're working on now. Okay, let's see if interpolate works. Let me go up and down a little bit. I think it did a decent job. Okay, let's go a little bit deeper. I'm still 95% confident this is plasma membrane. Look how dark it is compared to its other sides. And then there's a gap here between my cells and a gap here. So I think my cell is going up like this and like this. And then there's some squiggliness here I won't stress about, but I can sort of say plasma membrane here. The texture here is very different than the texture here. And the previous slices were still confined to this region. So I'm going to say, educated guess, that I'm going to trace like this up here. And then I'm going to go somewhere in this dubious region, and then I'm going to come down nicely around my cell. I can feel confident. I did the best I can. Slice number 3. Let's use interpolate. Let's go up and down. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then let's do a little bit more. Oof, this is hairy. But I think this particular slice is nice, because I can still be confident about this side of the cell up until here. Then there's some dubiousness. And then there's almost like a lamellipoda, like something stretching out of my cell, like a finger over here. But it's hard to be confident about that in this electron micrograph. So I am going to take the liberty of confidently tracing over here. And let me make a mistake. Oops, I made a mistake. Undo is your friend. Let's try again. Plasma membrane still activated. That's the segment we're annotating. Let's go down and around plasma membrane. Oh, but you didn't go exactly on top of it, but I'm close enough, man. Let's go a little bit up like this. And then there's some dubiousness here. that I can't really confidently say, but I am quite curious about this extrusion. I'm going to consider it part of my cell. You can take these liberties within reason. And then you know what? I think that this is also a protrusion of the cell, the plasma membrane. It's like it's reaching out, feeling the cells around it. Interpolate, slice number 4. Let's go a little bit deeper. And let's move it so that we center it again. I am still quite confident about the bottom part, that this is plasma membrane. And then there's some dubiousness here. Oh, I think this is the boundary of the cell. And then I'm not sure if it stretches out in this direction or if it goes straight down like this. Therefore, I'm going to do something. I'm going to go up and down a little bit. Up and down. Up and down. And then I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to... Oh, now I'm going to make a nice reasoning. Suddenly, here's my nucleus. Therefore, my plasma membrane already stretched all the way here. So it's not far-fetched that the cell is expanding quickly in its territory. And then I found a slice that grounds me a little bit. This one right here. I think this is the plasma membrane. And then it goes down like this. It goes down like this. And then on this side of the gap, and then down here, and then up, around, and so forth. And then like this. It took a while to sort of decide, but I think I'm confident enough to start annotating the plasma membrane. I cared to go up and down and make an educated guess. And now I'm going to start from here and then go down around what I believe is the plasma membrane by 2 criteria. It's dark gray tone compared to its surroundings, and if there's a gap next to it, for example, I'm coming up to a gap between cells, I'd say my plasma membrane is on this side of the gap. And then you go up and around, and then there's some dubiousness here, but I think that this is now my plasma membrane. And then I close it like this. That was the best I could do for this slice. And I'm going to do interpolate. Let's see what I've done so far. I think I'm ready for the 6th slice. I think this is the plasma membrane. And while I still remember what I did in my boundaries, I'm going to go again and do this. So I'm not sure exactly where to go here, but I do know that this is plasma membrane. So I reach that. I have to lift my mouse, so there's a little bit of an error there that I can fix in a moment. And then up and around. And I think I've traced my plasma membrane decently, except for this part. So I'm going to go again and trace this part that I missed and close that selection. And now it gets filled. I think I did an okay job here. Let me interpolate. Okay, now suddenly I realized interpolation wasn't perfect, because interpolation thought this was just the cell and it actually missed this part. So I'm going to go in and do a 7th slice. So let's start from here, and I'm going to say the plasma membrane is on this side of this, whatever that is. So I'm going to go like this, up and around, and dubiousness, but I'm just going to bridge to this part which I'm more confident about, and then go down. I'm going to lift my mouse for this because I ran out of space, and close this like so. I can tell that I breached the plasma membrane and went into the other cell over here, so I'm going to use the eraser and then trace over what I believe is the plasma membrane, close this, and I'm more confident about this selection. Let me do interpolate again. Let's see, inspect what we have. I can see that interpolation missed another part. Quick select tool and interpolation are very limited when it comes to something as complex as labeling the whole cell. So I think all this was missed by the cell. So I'm going to do my 8th slice. You only need to do 10 slices, which is a reasonable amount of time. And then we have 10 more weeks to gradually annotate the boundaries of our cell. But let's start this week from the very extreme end. Okay, so now I did another selection, and now I'm happy with the rest of it, so I'm just going to close that selection, this trace, and now it filled in that area. And let's see, let's explore what we got. Okay, I am hesitant to conclude where the membrane is. I can say that the membrane is over here, but I'm a little bit hesitant here. I won't push it. Let me just go. I have 2 more slices left this week. Suddenly my nucleus appears. And let's go to the very other end of the cell. Why not? Instead of tracing large areas. Let's trace, I think this is my cell. I can say that this is my cell. So I'm going to still stay on plasma membrane and annotate this part over here. Okay, and then I'm going to go a little bit deeper and get this more extreme end, like so, and that is 9 and 10. Let me interpolate between them. And now I have done some plasma membrane annotation this week. I can clearly see this is plasma membrane. I don't want to spend more time necessarily on this week's annotation. So 10 slices are sufficient. Making sure that if you do use interpolation, you correct areas that were missed by the tool, that you can confidently say, hey, this is actually part of the cell. Like this one, for example. I can now confidently say, this is also part of the plasma membrane. So I'm going to do this, number 11. But you can just do 10 slices. That's enough for this week. But no one's going to tell you not to do more. But quality over quantity is the name of the game. That's enough. This is addictive, actually, in my case. So I'm going to stop here. And then I want to see what I did. So let's see. Normally, you would get, if you were to minimize this panel, you would get 4 panels, unless you manually resize them. So what I want to do is actually focus on the mesh. So let's just maximize the XY plane where we did the annotation. I'm on move here, so I don't have to worry about accidentally annotating something. And then this is the mesh. Nothing there because we have to click compute mesh. Wow. So now the bottom of my cell, the entire cell, the boundaries of the plasma membrane have been annotated. So it filled in the entire cell and the very top of the cell. That's the work I did today. Let me rotate it around. You can see that I did one end of the cell and the other end, altogether 10 slices. And we can flip it around this way as well. We can do this slanted way, 3D. This is what I did today in terms of annotating the entire cell boundaries by tracing the plasma membrane. Again, it would take maybe an hour of tracing or more, depending on how quick you are and whether you have a nice mouse to work with or you're working on your mouse pad. 10 slices are enough. We'll have more time to follow up on the plasma membrane. But practice distinguishing between 2 sides of the plasma membrane, your cell and the cell next to you. And while you're doing it, keep an eye out. What is the overall structure of my cell? Is it round or is it like long and winding through other cells? That's something you're going to add into your reflection this week. After you do your 10 slices of plasma membrane, and in the process before that, getting a a feeling for the boundaries of your cell by tracing, eyeballing where the plasma membrane is going, you can save your work and then share your work with me. Make sure the link is public, copy it and paste it in the text box with the rest of your answers. Happy annotating, and see you Friday.